We've all been there. You go online, you want to learn something that's going to get you out of the scenario that you're in, going to better your life in some way, but you end up drowning in a sea of notifications, ads, and social media noise. It's hard to build a better version of yourself when you're constantly being distracted. That's why I have moved our entire community over to School. It's a space designed for deep learning and genuine connection without the scroll. I love it way more than social media. When you join us, you're stepping into a sanctuary. For all my clients, I provide free monthly workshops and a library of resources every single month. And now you can get those resources without actually being a client and only being a free member of the community. It's a place to grow alongside a tribe that actually wants to see you and your marriage win. If you're looking for a specific path, I have a couple of flagship courses available. Edifying Eden for women who are ready to cultivate peace and mindset and get rid of the resentment, anger, overwhelm, yelling, and all of that in order to be heard. And I also have Forging Fortitude for the men for building the resilience and the capacity to be able to handle your emotions, your wife's emotions, as well as your children, to build a legacy that people cannot stop respecting and to help you from A to B in getting there. I also offer one-on-one coaching for those who want a direct, personalized map of their goals. And for those of you that are ready to go all in right now, check out Connected and Committed. It's a 6-week self-study intensive that includes 3 video coaching sessions every single week, plus all the tools and resources that you need to make a permanent shift. Stop fighting the algorithms and start investing in yourself. Join our School community today and experience what it's like to learn in an environment built for your success. Click the link in the show notes to go directly to our community. I'll see you inside. Marriage isn't supposed to feel like roommates, but it doesn't have to feel like a war either. Hi, I'm Kameran Alareqi, certified marriage coach and a relationship expert. Every week on Married and Connected, I bring you real talk, hard truths, and practical tools you can start using right away. Whether you've been married 2 years or 42, this is where you'll find hope, encouragement, and steps that actually work. So let's make your marriage feel good again, starting right now. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Married and Connected podcast. I am your host, Kameran Alareqi, and we are officially in the New Year, New You zone. How are you feeling? Honestly. Because if you're like me, you've probably spent the last week being bombarded by ads for gym memberships, planners that cost way too much for a bunch of empty paper, and influencers telling you that if you don't reinvent your life by next Friday, which is considered Quitter's Day, you've essentially failed 2026. Here's the thing about marriage. You can buy a new planner, and you can start a new diet, and you can definitely buy a new pair of running shoes. But when you walk back through your front door, you're still walking into the same marriage. And this is one of the reasons that I absolutely loathe that phrase, New Year, New Me. Because if you're still making the exact same mistakes, living the exact same patterns, doing the exact same things in your marriage that got you to where you are, you're not a new you. You're still the same person who forgets to refill the water filter, and still the same version who gets a little hangry at 6 p.m. Today, we are diving into a topic that I think we all need. New year, same marriage, how to grow without burning out. We're going to look at why relationship resolutions usually fail by February, why January is considered the divorce month, with the most divorce filings being done this month. And we're going to look at the actual science of how couples grow together and how to make 2026 a year of real connection without adding another exhausting project to your plate. So let's jump in. I want to start by addressing why we feel so much pressure right now. There's this cultural myth that growth has to be like this grand gesture. And we think that to fix a disconnect, we have to have like a 10-day silent retreat in Arizona where you do ayahuasca or a complete personality transplant for your spouse. But if we look at the research, specifically from the Gottman Institute, they've studied thousands of couples over decades. They found something fascinating. Successful master couples don't necessarily have fewer problems than disaster couples. What they have is a higher positive perspective. The Sound Relationship House theory shows that foundation isn't built on these huge, sweeping romantic gestures. It's built on attunement. And the way that the Sound Relationship House works is if you picture your home, right? You've got your outer walls are created through commitment and trust. That's what holds the foundation of your home up. What makes the difference in having just a building that you're residing in and an actual home is what's inside. And that's where the attunement comes in. That's friendship. So the three things that you have to have in your relationship in order to make it thrive are friendship, trust, and commitment. Now, I can teach you all day long how to rebuild trust, and I can teach you all day long how to create friendship, even if you've been married for 35, 40 years and that friendship has faded. What I can't teach you is commitment. You have to have that commitment on your own. Commitment to yourself, commitment to your partner, commitment to making the marriage work, and commitment to the process, because healing isn't linear. So there's going to be days where you feel like you've taken 5 steps forward and 10 steps back. When we try to new year, new you, our marriage, a lot of times we skip that foundation and try to just paint the roof. We say we're going on a date every single week and we're going to talk about our feelings for 2 hours. Phenomenal. That sounds great on paper, right? But then Tuesday happens, work's stressful, kids are sick, you're just plain tired, money's tight. Well, we already did that. We already went to that place. We already saw that. The kids have too many projects and activities and whatever. So you can't hit that grand goal and then you feel like you failed. That is what leads to growth burnout. There's this psychological concept called ego depletion, and it suggests that willpower is a limited resource. So if you're using all your willpower to stay on this strict new diet or hit these new KPIs at work, you have a lot less patience left for your spouse at the end of the day. One of the things that I hear as a marriage coach constantly is that, and they don't use these words necessarily, but the underlying message is that your spouse is getting your leftovers and they're sick of it. And that's why they feel disconnected in your marriage. So I want you to take a breath here. I want you to think of a time that you tried to be the perfect spouse while also starting a new habit. I know I've done this where my New Year's resolution is I'm going to lose 50 pounds and then I'm also going to be the perfect wife. I just ended up snapping. And I end up snapping over things that, like, the dishwasher isn't loaded correctly. Who gives a crap? It's not about the dishwasher. It's about the fact that I'm a human being, just as you are, and that I was overwhelmed. I had that growth burnout, trying to do too many things at once. But also, I had to get very real on what my priorities were. Was my marriage really more important than losing 50 pounds? Was I doing it for health-related reasons or was I doing it for vanity? My other resolutions to make more money or to go see all these trips or to go to certain concerts, which was more important, my marriage or those goals? So here's the question. How do we know if we're pushing too hard? How do we know if our growth is actually causing more harm than good? Here's 3 red flags for marriage burnout. Number 1, the project mindset. If you find yourself looking at your spouse and thinking, okay, if I can just get them to do X, Y, and Z, then we'll be happy. You're not growing. You're managing and controlling. Marriage is not a kitchen remodel. And when we treat our spouse like a project, then they feel judged. They don't feel loved. Love is not control. And research shows that people don't change when they feel judged. They change when they feel accepted. Red flag number 2 is comparison paralysis. Social media is the thief of marital joy, especially in January. You are going to see all these couples posting about their 6 a.m. couples yoga routine. And look, we're drinking this green juice that tastes like cardboard together. Couples that start their day together stay together. And you look at your spouse who is currently snoring with a piece of pizza crust on their shirt who fell asleep on the couch again, and you feel like you're losing a race you didn't even sign up for. Red flag number 3 is the transactional scorecard. This is a big one, and this is one that I see constantly as well. 1 Corinthians 13, which if you got married in a church, that was probably one of the verses that was read at your wedding, says love doesn't keep a record of wrongs. That's a scoreboard. But here's the deal. If you're thinking, I listened to a podcast about marriage today, so you need to be extra nice to me tonight. Well, I took out the trash, so I get a blowjob. Well, I changed the oil in your car, so that means I get sex for the next week. Well, I took care of the kids today and did your laundry and even ironed your shirt with an iron that hasn't been touched in 3 years. So you get to give me a back rub. When we are burned out, we start keeping a balance sheet. Well, I've taken the kids to school drop off for the last 7 days, and you haven't done it but once this month. True growth happens in the overflow, not in the exchange. If you are keeping score with your partner, and I don't care what it is, if it's I make more money than you, or I'm paying for our vacation, or, oh yeah, all those Christmas gifts that we just bought those kids, that came off of my credit card. You're keeping score. And if you're doing that, you are single-handedly tearing your marriage apart. That's not growth. That's just adding to the negative sentiment override that you already had, which then leads to resentment, which then leads to silent treatment, which then leads to separation or divorce. If you feel these red flags, it is time to pivot from optimization or trying to be the best to connection, just trying to be with, okay? I'm not lowering the bar here. I'm not telling you to have zero expectations. I'm telling you to have realistic expectations for your marriage so that you can survive the year. And not just survive, but truly thrive and get you to a growth point that is realistic without burning you out. So here is the 1% rule for couples. If you want to grow this year without burning out, we have to talk about atomic habits for our marriage. If you have not read this book, highly recommend it. James Clear wrote this book, Atomic Habits, for individuals, but it applies perfectly to couples as well. Instead of a 100% change right here at the new year, which the second Friday of January is deemed Quitter's Day because we feel like a failure because we started these 12 days ago and haven't been able to live into it. And so then we just quit. Instead, we want 1% shifts. All right. Here's 3 research-backed 1% shifts that you can actually sustain. And that's the whole goal for this podcast anyways. I am not the coach that is going to Willy Wonka this and be like, just go on more dates. That's probably not going to help because the idea for dates is these big, extravagant, expensive things. That's not necessarily a date. For me, when I'm telling you to go on a date, I'm going to tell you to take a 15-minute walk around the block. Grab your favorite beverage and go sit out on the porch for a little while and just talk, connect. And that's the first 1% shift that I want you to make is the bid for connection. We talk about bids all the time on the podcast. A bid is any attempt from one partner for attention, affirmation, or affection. It's when your partner comes up and asks for a hug. It's when your partner comes and says, you smell really good. It's when your spouse says something like, wow, look at that bird outside. There's a trend going around on social media, or was at least a month ago when I spent 8 hours at the DMV. I did an Instagram live on this. So you can check out my Instagram at married.and.connected to watch the whole thing. But basically what it's saying is that when you have a spouse that says, oh, I saw a bird today. And you're like, okay. And you're turning away from them. Okay. When they say, oh, I saw a bird today. And you're like, oh, what kind of a bird was it? I saw a bird the other day too. Oh, wow. It was a cardinal. I love cardinals. They're so beautiful. You're turning towards them. When your spouse says, wow, look at that bird outside, the burnout response is going to ignore them or be like, okay, because you're on your phone. Not necessarily talking on your phone, but like doom scrolling. The growth response here is look up for 3 seconds. and turn to them and be like, oh yeah, cool. How did that make you feel? What made you think of that? That's the growth. Consistently turning toward those small bids builds a repair buffer for when the big fights happen. That repair isn't happening in a lot of marriages. And this is why divorce is happening more and more and more, because we think that, oh, well, there's just too much conflict. We're just arguing too much. We're just having these negative cycles over and over and over. Yeah, it's because you're not changing the habits and you're not actually repairing when it does happen. And in order to have a healthy marriage, you have to turn toward your partner at least 80% of the time when they bid for your connection. Now, here's the kicker. Your partner can bid over 100 times in a 3-hour dinner for your attention, for your affection, for your affirmation. When they say something like, oh my gosh, my husband is so smart. My husband's so successful. I'm just so proud of him. And you're like, okay. Or it's not that big of a deal, then you're turning away. You're dismissing that bid for connection or that affirmation. A simple thanks, babe, is great. That's turning towards. It's little things like that. It's a look. It's a touch. It's your partner coming up to stand beside you. Do you care when that happens? This is the 1% growth that we're talking about. These are not hard things. The 1% growth is showing care. Now, for some of you, it's like, yeah, but when they come and they talk to me about, airplane things because they're a pilot, or they say things like, oh, I saw a bird. I don't care. I don't give a crap. I don't want to talk about that topic. Great. But they do. So what's important to them needs to be important to you as well. Otherwise, you're living in self-centeredness. And guess what? 1 Corinthians also says, love is not selfish. There is no space for selfishness. Here's what's going to happen though. Let's talk about this. Okay, you don't care about the topic that they're coming to talk to you about. You don't care about your wife comes and talks to you about her friend down the street said this and did that and this was the outcome. Great. Has absolutely no bearing on your life whatsoever. Cool. And at the same time, here's what's going to happen. You have 2 choices here. You can dismiss that and be like, okay, why are you telling me this? Or have that attitude or that tone. And that's going to lead to your partner feeling unheard, unseen, misunderstood, like they can't come to you, like you're not an emotionally safe space. It's going to start an argument. Or you can take option number 2 and you can be like, wow, babe, that really sucks. Wow, babe, that sounds like that was a really hard situation. 30 seconds. 30 seconds is all it takes. And now your partner not only feels seen, heard, understood, loved, cared for, like you're an emotionally safe person and they can come to you about anything, and you move on with your day. See how that works? 1% growth. That's all we're asking here. Changing that one tiny little habit. That's it. 1% growth number 2, 20-minute decompression. Research shows that couples who have a dedicated time to vent about their day, not about each other, okay, very, very different, are significantly more satisfied. The rule here is no unsolicited advice. You're just listening. You're just listening. You're validating your spouse's stress outside the marriage so that it prevents it from leaking into your marriage. Now, this is also going to coincide with the 1% growth change of turning towards your partner's bids. When your partner comes to you and vents about their day, instead of you jumping into fix, which I know this is a lot of people, not just men, mostly men, but not just men, have this issue where they just want to fix the problem and move on. Great. That gives you purpose, but that's not the purpose of why your partner's coming to talk to you. So here's what I want you to do. When your partner comes to you and they start to vent about their day, I want you to stop them and say, hey, babe, I don't want to interrupt you, but just to be clear here, do you just want to be heard or do you want me to offer you advice here? A lot of times they just want to be heard. So they're going to vent for however long. And that also tells you how you need to be listening. Does it mean that you get on your phone and scroll? No. It means you look at them. It means that you pay attention to what they're saying. It means that you take it an at least a minimal interest in what they're talking about. And then when they're done, all you have to do is validate their experience. Validation does not mean agreement. It just says, hey, I see how you could feel the way that you feel. So you say something like, wow, babe, that sucks. Or, wow, that's really cool. Or, wow, that was really hard. Or, wow, sounds like you need a hug. Do you need a hug? Something small. Again, your response, 30 seconds. 30 seconds of your day. That's it. Not a big deal. But by doing that, your partner feels heard, seen, understood, like you care. They feel like you're an emotionally safe space that they can come talk to for anything. And there's no argument. There's no argument of, oh my God, you always do this. You always give me advice and I don't need advice. You always just want to fix it. I don't need it fixed. I just wanted to vent. And you're sitting there going, I'm sorry. I was just contributing to the conversation. Yes, but that's not what they needed. And in return, you also need that same level of respect and response in return. Now, you can vent about your day for the next 10 minutes. And it doesn't even have to be venting. It can be talking about the great things in your life or the things that you're excited for or your top 5 stressors or anything. It's just letting your partner into that world. So going back to that Gottman Sound Relationship House model, this is the friendship. This is the base foundation of friendship is letting each other into your worlds. Getting to know each other again. Can you, if I were sitting right next to you and we were having coffee and I said, what are the top 3 stressors in your partner's life right now? What's a goal that your partner has this year? What's something that really lights your partner on fire right now? What are they, what's the deep dive that they're taking down the rabbit hole at, 11 o'clock at night on AI? If you can't answer those questions, that's what's leading to your disconnection in your marriage. So having those 20-minute decompression times, getting to know what's going on with the kids, talking about your day, talking about what's coming up, talking about the budget, meal planning together, all of that, 20 minutes minimum per day. Instead of flipping on Netflix, doom scrolling on your phone, instead of taking a 2-hour bath, something like that. That is what is going to create the 1% growth in your marriage. Because the happiest couples spend at least 90 minutes per week together connecting. Okay, 1% growth habit number 3. This is the high five habit. Now, this is going to sound ridiculous, but hear me out here. Mel Robbins talks about the high five habit for yourself, but doing it with your spouse works just as well. You're going to acknowledge a win every single day. Hey, thanks for handling that incredibly annoying phone call with the insurance company. It costs 0 energy and pays out huge in the emotional bank account credits. Now, here's what's great about this, okay? I love this because as I'm coaching couples, this is something that is very much missing in most of the couples that I coach. We're so quick to acknowledge the negativity. Oh my gosh, my partner did this again. Oh my gosh, we're in a negative cycle again. Oh my gosh, there's never enough this or that or the other. They don't celebrate the wins. Not even the big wins, much less the small wins. But the small wins are going to help you with that positive outlook that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. When you're walking through the living room and giving your partner a high five, it changes the vibe of your entire house. That's the kind of win that you need in your marriage. And by stacking those wins, you're only going to create a more positive vibe between the two of you and a more positive marriage overall. But here's the thing. We can't talk about marriage growth without talking about intimacy. And in the new year, this is a lot of times where the most burnout happens. We feel like we should be more romantic or we should be having more sex. And the research on spontaneous versus responsive desire shows a lot about this. Many people, especially women, according to researcher Emily Nagoski, have responsive desire. Responsive desire doesn't strike like lightning. It's a response to a low stress, high connection environment. So if you are burnt out from trying to improve your life, your libido is the first thing to go on strike. This also applies if you are burnt out because you keep asking for help and you're not getting it. So men, I need you to really hone in and pay attention here, because if your wife continually brings all the things up in your relationship and they're getting dismissed, they're getting minimized, and you're not actually addressing these things, then what's happening is the hurt is still there. If the hurt is still there and the burnout is still there, and she's just adding resentment, and building this wall in between the two of you because of all the things that she's asking you to do and you're not doing them. And this also applies if you say, yeah, I'm going to do it, and then you don't. Or if you say you're going to improve yourself, you say you're going to get help, you say that you're going to get coaching, and then you don't. If your words and actions don't match up, that's also creating stress for her. If you say you're going to take care of the kids and then you don't. All of these things, if she has a responsive desire, this is going to absolutely kill it for her. She is rarely going to want to have sex with you because she has a responsive desire. It's not there. Whereas if you're improving yourself and you are matching those words and actions, your emotional maturity is improving. You are taking the necessary steps to spend time with her, to connect with her every single week. That's where the responsive desire is going to increase. To grow here, you have to stop focusing on the act and focus on the context. So here's that shift. Is the bedroom a graveyard of laundry piles and laptops? You need to make the bedroom a no stress zone. No talking about bills, no checking emails, no phones at all. TV, this is a really big one. Society accepts having a TV in your bedroom. But if you want a more frequently intimate life, you can't have those electronics in your bedroom. Just that small boundary can reduce burnout and allow connection to actually breathe. I've been working with a couple over the last couple of weeks. One thing that has improved their connection, they were going to bed on certain sides of the bed that both of them ended up back to back when they go to bed. They've switched positions. He sleeps on her side, she sleeps on what was his. And it's increased their connection. Just that little thing. We're talking small shifts, you guys. Small shifts. Those small shifts are what increase your marriage growth by that 1% that we've been talking about. Okay, so what if they are a spontaneous desire? Spontaneous desire, like the mood strikes like lightning. So whenever the mood strikes, you're good. But that responsive desire makes a huge difference. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. You are allowed to have a medium year. You don't have to have a transformative year. Sometimes, and I've seen this happen so often, the greatest growth is in the goal being consistent and simply staying steady and kind in a world that is loud and demanding. I have seen more couples who make that their goal and make consistency their word of the year absolutely skyrocket than I have those who are like, oh yeah, we're going to have an absolutely explosive year. And then you end up quitting by March. Your marriage is truly a living thing. And it doesn't need to be forced to grow. It just needs the right environment to grow on its own. But that takes intentionality. I want you to pick 1% shift. Maybe it's a 6-second kiss. Maybe it's a Sunday State of the Union meeting. Do it for 7 days. Don't announce it. Don't make a chart. Just do it and see how it feels to grow quietly. And then next week, keep that one but add a second one. And then the next week, do the third one. And continue to grow that way. Remember that it takes 21 days to make a habit. It takes 60 days of consistent everyday effort in order to solidify that habit. And then it takes at least 90 days in order to make it a lifestyle. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please share it with a friend who might be feeling that January pressure. And if you have a second, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps me keep the lights on and the conversations going. Thanks for being here. And until next week, stay married and connected. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional counseling or therapy. Every couple story is unique, so take what's helpful and leave the rest. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that neither I, Kameran Alareqi, Married and Connected, or Recognizing Potential Coaching are responsible for any outcomes related to what you apply from this show, especially if you are not a client of mine.